Davante Adams is a New York Jet.
No, it happened. Yeah. Let's go. I was going to ask you that on the show. Dude, the Jets are back against the wall mode with that game. Not that the trade manifested for the first time since the game struck zero last night in the loss, but you know that they have talked about Davante Adams before. But okay, so this is a perfect way to segue this conversation because we have Robert Saleh is out. Nate Hackett's out as play caller. It's Todd Downing as the play caller there. It's Jeff Ulbricht as the head coach. So my question to you, in a game that, I'm sorry, Buffalo Bills fans, I don't mean to take anything away from you. I feel like the Jets should have won that football game. It was close, but I feel like the Jets squandered more opportunities than necessarily the Buffalo Bills did. There were a lot of penalties in that game, so I guess it could go either way. Bills fans are going to be mad at me. I know. But when you look at this Jets team and how they played on Monday Night Football, did it look different for you? Did the Jets offense look different for you making the changes? And then we'll get into sort of how Davante Adams kind of comes into this.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't look like from the 10,000-foot view, I wasn't like, oh my God, this is a completely different offense. And I don't think there was ever a chance that was going to be the case. And I think with football, one of the issues is you just can't change your offense in a week. And I was talking to some guys yesterday who played major college football, and they were like talking about offensive line play, and they were like, whenever we tried to do something that wasn't on a week-to-week basis, whenever we tried to do something that wasn't the stuff that we practiced from August all the way through the season, they had so much trouble. So when you look at this Jets offense, it's like, well, they can't do that much different things. And so I don't think we saw anything like, I'm sure there was conceptually little details that are different. I'm sure. I'm not smart enough to understand that stuff. But what we did see was Rodgers not taking just quote unquote easy one-on-one throws down the sideline. And one of the things that Rodgers had done this year was he actually had more throws this season than any other player on kind of go routes, sideline go routes, back shoulders, end zone fades. And he was like he graded well, but the results weren't there. And he didn't have that type of player because he threw a lot of those back shoulders to Garrett Wilson. That's not the type of player that Garrett Wilson is. Mike Williams is more of that type of player, though obviously that connection with Mike Williams has not been there at all this season. Lazard's not that type of player either. So you're trying all these throws that just don't have a big success rate. And I think with Rodgers, one of the things we've always talked about with Rodgers was the back shoulder throws.
Right.
But when you look at it statistically, like he actually had more back shoulder throws this season going into this game, and actually now after this game, they did all of his last full season, 2022. So like it's not really been like they're very memorable, but it hasn't been a very big part volume wise of the Rodgers offense. So now for him to just kind of be throwing all those balls up and they haven't been working, we just didn't see that yesterday. And that's important. There's still a lot of like tough throws that he makes, like all the like Lazard. There's the Lazard insane throw where he puts it on the linebacker's hip. There's all these throws to Lazard for some reason. That's not good. But a lot of throws to Lazard in the seam between the two safeties. He did throw the interception trying to do that last week versus Minnesota. But those are the throws that Rodgers, when he hits on those throws, they're going to be a good offense. The issue is those throws come with big hits. You saw it on Ruckert, drop ball. You see it on Garrett Wilson in the end zone, drop ball. Those are kind of the concerns that I continue to have. But it did feel like, to be honest, it did feel like there was less. I'm half, we don't have any stats on this, so like I'm half kind of doing this by memory, but like it felt like there was a lot less Aaron Rodgers going to the line, checking to his own play, and then doing all that stuff. Like in the LaFleur offense where he was a two-time MVP, like there was a lot of LaFleur scheme stuff that brought him to that level. You add the scheme stuff plus Aaron Rodgers, like we can have an MVP level player there. And with Hackett the first 5 weeks, it was just Rodgers kind of being this sentient guy that sentient. There was a term that I think Mike McCarthy used in that article that came out a few years ago about how the end of the McCarthy and Rodgers era. He's like a sentient computer playing quarterback, and like or sentient offensive coordinator playing quarterback, something like that. But like we didn't see that as much yesterday. I think that's probably a good thing.
There were some sick throws that he made against the Buffalo Bills, but it's not like that was unfamiliar. I think that certainly your point about the offense looking different because it's relying maybe a little less on those outside one-on-one balls. Like, yeah, you still got to win. It's still it feels like a one-on-one offense, and honestly, like getting Davante Adams, it's only going to become more of a one-on-one offense, right? Because you're going to have faith in your guy to be able to win those one-on-ones. So I'm very curious now, after one game of Todd Downing and Aaron Rodgers sort of not really calling those outside back shoulder one-on-one balls, against the Buffalo Bills, how much does that change here now? Like, how much does Davante Adams, because now you got to think of it. Lazard's in this offense as well, I understand that. But you have Mike Williams on one side, you have Davante Adams on the other, and you have Garrett Wilson anywhere in between, right?
Mike Williams is the guy out at this point because Rodgers trusts Lazard so much
that
fair. He's not coming out of the offense. Like it's not like it won't be Lazard, and the connection between him and Mike Williams hasn't been there. Obviously, I assume some of that has to do with the ACL, some of it just has to do with whatever the connection is.
Mm-hmm.
So you're pretty much putting in. You're gonna in three receiver sets. It's gonna be Lazard, Garrett Wilson, and Mike Williams. I'm sure. I'm sorry, Lazard, Garrett Wilson, and Davante Adams. Like there's no way Rodgers is putting Alan Lazard on the bench. So those are going to be your three receivers and four receiver packages, which is the main package that they have on offense.
It is
I don't know. I think this is obviously a good move. I like that the Jets are going for it. I think they have no other choice, even at 2-4. Like there's no rebuild, right? Like this is it. Right. You better go for it. They're in a tough spot. I keep falling back on the same thing with this offense, even before the Davante trade, which is like there's so much damn talent on this team that I'll still kind of believe in them to a certain degree. And now you've added even more talent. So it's good. Like they needed to do it.
The timing of it is very interesting because also this morning they give Hassan Reddick and now Drew Rosenhaus, who is his new agent, permission to seek a trade. So it's like, are they very comfortable trading Hassan Reddick now because they know they're going to get draft picks back, and that's what makes up for trading a draft pick and the salary cap compensation wise, financially, that you're just like subbing Hassan Reddick out. And so part of me thinks like, oh, okay, well this means Hassan Reddick is gone. But the defensive line for the Jets is actually more of an issue than receiver is. So like you said, if you're the Jets, you've got to be completely all in. You have to just sell everything you can when it comes to like reservations and like, oh, well, what about the salary cap, in 2 to 3 years? Like you were very clearly just in the Super Bowl window. Go all the way in on it. And we joked that Davante Adams was going to become a Jet when he first demanded a trade, but that always seemed like the most likely. And for New York, a team that was struggling in that regard, I do think that it looked better for them last week, though. Or sorry, this past week, I should say, on Monday Night Football against the Bills because of sort of what you said. They did look more explosive. They certainly blocked better for Breece Hall, which was nice. The red zone stuff, I think in particular, they have to get a lot better at. They're not horrible at it, but they're not as good as they could be. And certainly when you see that massive Breece Hall run and he's got one guy to beat and he doesn't beat him, and then all of a sudden like you can't score in the red zone. I mean, that's an issue for you. Like that's a play that there's got to be 6, and if it's not, you've got to have a player like Davante Adams who you could at least go to 1 or 2 times in the passing game and have a lot of faith there. So this is big for them, obviously, and it's going to yield whatever the best results of Aaron Rodgers are going to be because we've already seen that in Green Bay.
So just reading it, I think it's a conditional pick that they're giving up, but they are taking all of Davante Adams' salary, which, like, to be honest, like, who cares? Again, like, you go over, like just go over this, like, pay as much money as you want because it doesn't really matter. Because if it doesn't work out, you're in a full rebuild. for a few years. Like, so you might as well try and win this thing this season. At 2-4, it's tough, right? Like that's the issue. You lose a close game this week. You lost a close game last week where an interception to Mike Williams on a target to Mike Williams to end the game the last 2 weeks. I'm not saying it's Mike Williams' fault per se, but 2 close games. And like at 2-4, again, I believe in the talent on this team, offense and defense, but it's like there's just not a lot of teams that have come back from 2-4 and made the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's really going to be the issue. They still have to get better at running the football. Like this was a game where they had some explosive runs they haven't had this year, especially Breece Hall. We saw it down the sideline. You take away those 2 runs, and not that we should take away those 2 runs, but you take away those 2 runs and they weren't really running the football that well. So like 5.4 yards per carry or something like that yesterday. You take out those 2 runs, it goes down to like 2 yards per carry, which is like exactly where they've been this whole season. They need to get better at running the football. But passing game is probably going to be elite going forward. It was elite last night. A lot of big plays, not a lot, Hail Mary has a lot to do with that. We haven't talked about
That's true. That's true. It does. You're right.
Freaking Hail Mary. Classic Rodgers, just like throwing the ball up there. I think my favorite thing there was like a shift when Rodgers was throwing those, like back in the day, like the Jeff Janis and Richard Rodgers ones. It was like, I'm going to throw it to the kind of front of the end zone, and I'm going to get a guy to body kind of in exactly the way that Lazard caught it. Like, I'm just going to go backwards into that pile.
Yeah.
And make the catch. And they did it again. They just did it again. But yeah, I think this offense passing game is going to be elite. I think the run game is where they're going to have some troubles because they just can't be we talked about it with the Ravens. Like, Ravens are going forward on every run. The Jets are generally going backwards on every run, or at least setting up longer yardage second downs and third downs. That's not fair on a 40-year-old quarterback. He's going to get them out of jams because he's that good, but they still need to be better going forward. So, yes, Davante is going to make them probably an elite passing attack, I would assume, but they need to be better running the football.
Yep.